When it comes to Spain, it acts as a comedy, a think piece, and as a reminder of the powers and dangers of the KGB from 1936-37 to modern times. And in some ways, you can appreciate how it's showing how propaganda evolved over time, but at the same time, there comes a point where it just feels like word vomit throughout 90 minutes. So to summarize the play, it's 1936. Joris and Helen work for the KGB, and for the most part, Helen is a producer, Joris is a filmmaker, and usually they have some third party do their writing. And thus far, Joris has mostly made shorts, but now his handler, or rather what he prefers to call his dinner companion, Carl, he wants him to do a full feature on Spain, which is going through a bit of a civil unrest. The Russians want to focus on the everyman, the hard worker, not on the bourgeoisie. And Joris, as always instructed, does what he's supposed to do. He even, with Helen's help of course, eventually recruits Ernest Hemingway through manipulating him by getting one of his friends and rivals named John de Passos involved. It's a whole thing. But the main point is, throughout this journey of trying to make this film, so comes the issue of identity. How much does Helen or Joris really want to be part of something like this? What is good enough to be able to just produce something, even if it's not the thing you want to make? Whether or not, as Helen and Joris are working their cover, whether or not they're truly in love or they're just being who someone else wants them to be because of their influence. And it's all very much about identity, influence, who are you really, combined with can you ever escape this sphere of influence and truly learn or rediscover who you are. So, notable thing about this is that when it comes to stage design, the entire stage from the top right to the bottom left is used, which makes it so I would not recommend sitting in row A. It might be better to sit in the back just so that you can see when someone's talking out of the top right corner or when it's coming out through the bottom left, because they have these weird moments with the KGB where they're just walking very menacingly from one part of the stage to another and disappearing. And honestly, it's quite interesting to see. That, and also they have one of those circular parts in the middle of the stage to watch, and it's... all I'm saying is, I've never been to this theater, but I've seen similar setups before, but this one definitely takes the cake, and I think the only one that can really compete with it is... I'm trying to remember. Whoever did the stage for the Temptations musical, or else the Motown musical, where they had all these things moving on at the same time, that's the only one that can compete. But considering how Spain uses nearly the entire stage from the top part to the sides and everything, what I like about it is it keeps you engaged. You're always looking and moving your head to different directions, so even if you are starting to get bored because people are talking too much, at the very least, you have to keep moving so you can't potentially fall asleep or get bored and aggravated. Get into another highlight. The whole question of identity thing kind of hit me in a way, mostly as Helen and Joris started to question, have they become lost in their cover stories? When it comes to their work, is there still a part of them in there, or is it just pretty much them just being a medium for KGB propaganda? And even the times they're questioning their freedom, are they truly free to do as they want, or are they on a long leash? And I'm probably not really breaking it down enough because so much talking goes on that is... I'm trying not to jump ahead to the on the fence part about the word vomit, but it's such a huge issue, but we're gonna try to focus on the good right now. But point of the matter is, there's a lot in Spain which tries to push the idea of how autonomous are you really? In terms of your self-discovery, how much of an influence did other people have on it, and how much did they mold you, and how much did you create yourself? when it comes to going from things back in the 1930s to modern times, how did media, how did culture truly make you who you are? And are you simply just part of the zeitgeist, or are you truly an individual? And this is me simplifying what sometimes can feel like overly complex ideas, the way that they sometimes put things, but again, I'm trying to put a positive spin on something that in many ways annoyed the hell out of me. Oh, speaking of annoyed the hell out of me, there's a part toward the end, so haha, spoiler, where for some reason they go from talking about 1930s and how film was highly influential to now suddenly with the cast who very much were built into the 1930s, somehow ended up in modern times, let's say around the election of 2016, where there's talk about using the internet with bots and social media, and it's just a stark contrast in a way. It was like, how do these people from the 1930s, including a very famous name like Ernest Hemingway, suddenly end up in some weird office where this Russian person is talking about modern technology? In some ways, you get it. They're trying to show how movies, television had such powerful influences on people. Now it's the internet, especially for the KGB and other type of agencies like them, but it just is so jarring and out of place that you're left to say nothing but what the which leads to the last on offense topic, which honestly might be a criticism because as shown thus far, I've been trying not to talk about it till now, but it's been such an issue. And that's just because it's a 90-minute play, no intermissions, it's a lot of talking. And while there's a lot of jokes in there that are definitely gonna make you laugh, especially because what's her name? Because she's the main reason I even saw this play. Marin Island, she's hilarious, love her, definitely one of the top reasons to see this. But when it comes to Ernest Hemingway, when it comes to Joris, they just keep talking and talking, and it feels like, you know how they say how some men just like to hear themselves talk even when they don't say anything worthwhile, but every now and again a clock is what, right, twice a day or whatever. I can't remember what the analogy is, but to keep it succinct, while I love what Helen says in terms of identity and all that type of stuff, and every now and then George jumps in and Ernest Hemingway may have an idea or something that's quotable, for the most part, you're listening to Joris, you're listening to Ernest, you're listening to John just talk and talk and talk, and you're just like, oh my god, if it wasn't so rude, I would definitely check my phone to see how much time is left on this, because these people are driving me nuts and definitely not making me feel like this is worth the ticket price. Which is all to say, I would not say if you're just visiting New York that you should check out Spain. Spain is more so for the people who love going to the theater, especially stuff that's new plays or plays that nobody's really heard about, and they like checking out new stuff because they have the money to do so. But if you're not in that field of you can just afford to go to plays just because it's a Tuesday, this ain't for you. Keep it moving.